Welcome to our channel. If you dare to explore the realms of darkness, subscribe to our channel for more true crime and horror content that will send shivers down your spine. Nazism, also known as National Socialism, was a political ideology and movement that emerged in Germany during the early 20th century. It was founded and led by Adolf Hitler, who became the Chancellor of Germany in 1933 and later the dictator, Führer, after the death of President Paul von Hindenburg. The period of Nazi rule in Germany lasted from 1933 to 1945. Here's a brief overview of the history of Nazism. Background. After Germany's defeat in World War I and the harsh terms imposed on the country by the Treaty of Versailles in 1919, Germany faced economic turmoil and political instability. This created a fertile ground for extremist political movements. Rise of the Nazi Party. The Nazi Party, National Socialistische Deutsche Arbeiterpartei (NSDAP), was established in 1920, and Adolf Hitler joined the party the same year. The party promoted a combination of extreme nationalism, anti-Semitism, anti-communism, and a racially driven social hierarchy. Beer Hall Putsch. In November 1923, Hitler and the Nazis attempted a coup known as the Beer Hall Putsch in Munich, but it failed, and Hitler was arrested. During his time in prison, he wrote Mein Kampf, outlining his political beliefs and future plans. Electoral success. The Nazi Party gained popularity during the late 1920s and early 1930s, partly due to the economic hardships and dissatisfaction with the Weimar Republic. In the July 1932 elections, the Nazis became the largest party in the Reichstag, German parliament. Appointment of Hitler as Chancellor. On January 30, 1933, President Paul von Hindenburg appointed Adolf Hitler as Chancellor of Germany, believing he could be controlled. However, Hitler and the Nazis swiftly began consolidating power and eliminating political opposition. Establishment of a totalitarian state. Over the next few years, the Nazi regime transformed Germany into a totalitarian state, suppressing dissent, controlling media, and purging political opponents. The Reichstag fire in February 1933 was used as a pretext to suspend civil liberties and arrest communists and other perceived enemies of the state. Nuremberg laws and persecution of Jews. In 1935, the Nuremberg laws were enacted, stripping German Jews of their citizenship and subjecting them to various forms of discrimination and persecution. This marked the beginning of the Holocaust, in which millions of Jews and other minority groups were systematically murdered. Annexation and aggression. The Nazi regime pursued territorial expansion, leading to the annexation of Austria, Anschluss, in 1938 and the occupation of Czechoslovakia. These actions contributed to the escalation of tensions that ultimately led to the outbreak of World War II in 1939. World War II and the Holocaust. The Nazi regime's aggressive foreign policy and invasion of Poland in September 1939 triggered World War II. During the war, the Nazis implemented their genocidal final solution to systematically exterminate European Jews, resulting in the Holocaust and the deaths of millions of innocent people. Defeat and collapse. As Allied forces advanced on Germany, Hitler's regime began to crumble. Hitler committed suicide in his bunker on April 30, 1945, and Germany surrendered unconditionally on May 7, 1945. Nuremberg trials. After the war, surviving Nazi leaders and officials were brought to trial for war crimes and crimes against humanity during the Nuremberg trials. Nazism remains one of the most infamous ideologies in history due to its role in causing World War II and the Holocaust, leading to the deaths of millions of people and untold suffering. Ideological foundations. Nazism was an extreme form of fascism that incorporated elements of racial supremacy, nationalism, anti-Semitism, and totalitarianism. Central to Nazism was the belief in the superiority of the Aryan race and the idea that Germans were a master race, destined to dominate others. Adolf Hitler and the rise of the Nazi Party. Adolf Hitler, an Austrian-born veteran of World War I, joined the German Workers' Party, DAP, which later became the National Socialist German Workers' Party, NSDAP, or Nazi Party. Hitler's powerful oratory skills and nationalist fervor helped him rise within the ranks of the party, and he eventually became its undisputed leader. Economic conditions in Germany. During the early 1930s, Germany was reeling from the effects of the Great Depression, which had a severe impact on its economy. Hyperinflation, high unemployment, and widespread poverty created a climate of social and political unrest, making many Germans susceptible to radical ideologies like Nazism. Consolidation of power. After Hitler's appointment as Chancellor, he quickly moved to consolidate power. Key steps included dissolving the Reichstag and calling for new elections, intimidating and arresting political opponents, and passing the Enabling Act in March 1933, which granted Hitler and his cabinet the authority to enact laws without parliamentary approval. Propaganda and control of information. The Nazi regime skillfully used propaganda to control public opinion, glorify Hitler, and demonize enemies, particularly Jews and other minority groups. Joseph Goebbels, the Minister of Propaganda, played a crucial role in manipulating the media and creating a cult of personality around Hitler. Persecution and discrimination. The Nazi regime launched a campaign of persecution against various groups deemed undesirable or a threat to the German racial community. This included Jews, Romani people, disabled individuals, LGBTQ+ individuals, communists, socialists, and others. The Nuremberg Laws of 1935 institutionalized racial discrimination and stripped Jews of their civil rights. Expansionist policies. With the goal of establishing a greater German empire, the Nazis pursued territorial expansion. In 1938, Germany annexed Austria, known as the Anschluss. The following year, they occupied Czechoslovakia. Hitler's aggressive foreign policy eventually led to the invasion of Poland in September 1939, triggering World War II. World War II and the Holocaust. World War II began with the German invasion of Poland. The conflict soon escalated, with Germany forming the Axis powers, which included Italy and Japan, against the Allied powers, including the United States, the United Kingdom, and the Soviet Union. The Holocaust, a state-sponsored genocide, aimed to exterminate European Jews and other targeted groups. The Nazis established concentration camps and death camps, such as Auschwitz, Sobibor, and Treblinka, where millions were systematically murdered through gassing, shooting, and forced labor. Resistance and defeat. Throughout World War II, resistance to Nazi rule and occupation existed within Germany and in occupied territories. Resistance took various forms, including partisan activities, hiding Jews, and efforts to undermine the Nazi war machine. Despite Hitler's initial military successes, the tide of the war turned against Germany as the Allies made significant gains on multiple fronts. The end of the Nazi regime. As the Allies closed in on Germany, the Nazi leadership faced internal divisions and faced defeat on multiple fronts. Hitler, unwilling to face capture or surrender, committed suicide in his underground bunker in Berlin on April 30, 1945. Aftermath and legacy. In the aftermath of World War II, the Nuremberg trials were held to prosecute prominent Nazi leaders for war crimes and crimes against humanity. The trials set important precedents for the prosecution of individuals responsible for mass atrocities. The legacy of Nazism is one of infamy and horror. The Holocaust stands as one of the most egregious examples of genocide in human history, and the Nazi regime's aggressive policies led to the deaths of tens of millions of people during World War II. The lessons from this period have shaped international efforts to prevent such atrocities and uphold human rights. Indoctrination and education. The Nazi regime heavily emphasized indoctrination and control of education. Schools were used to propagate Nazi ideology, and textbooks were rewritten to reflect the party's beliefs. Children were subjected to intense propaganda to instill loyalty to Hitler and the regime from a young age. Additionally, organizations like the Hitler Youth were established to indoctrinate and train young Germans to become loyal supporters of the Nazi cause. Control of the economy. The Nazi regime implemented a command economy, where the state exercised significant control over economic activities. This involved the coordination of production, distribution, and pricing of goods and services, with the goal of preparing the nation for war and economic self-sufficiency. Autarky and militarization. The Nazis pursued a policy of autarky, seeking to make Germany economically self-sufficient and less dependent on foreign trade. This was driven by a desire to avoid vulnerabilities and potential blockades during times of conflict. To achieve this, the regime invested heavily in military production, which contributed to the rearmament of Germany. Expansion and Lebensraum. One of the fundamental tenets of Nazi ideology was the concept of Lebensraum, living space. The Nazis believed that the German people needed more land to expand and thrive, and they sought to acquire territory in Eastern Europe and the Soviet Union for this purpose. This expansionist policy led to the invasion of Poland and the subsequent territorial gains during the early stages of World War II. Euthanasia program. The Nazi regime implemented a euthanasia program known as Action T4, aimed at systematically killing disabled individuals and people with mental illnesses. This program served as a precursor to the Holocaust and involved the forced sterilization and euthanasia of tens of thousands of people deemed unworthy of life. Wannsee Conference and the Final Solution. In January 1942, high-ranking Nazi officials, led by Reinhard Heydrich, convened the Wannsee Conference. The conference's purpose was to coordinate the implementation of the final solution to the Jewish question, which was a euphemism for the systematic extermination of Jews and other minority groups in extermination camps. This marked the full implementation of the Holocaust. Ghettos and concentration camps. Throughout Nazi-occupied Europe, the regime established ghettos to isolate and control Jewish populations before they were deported to concentration and extermination camps. Concentration camps were designed for forced labor, while extermination camps, such as Auschwitz, were dedicated to mass murder through gas chambers and other methods. Resistance and the Holocaust. Despite the overwhelming power of the Nazi regime, there were instances of resistance both within Germany and in occupied territories. Jewish partisan groups, underground resistance movements, and individuals risked their lives to fight against Nazi oppression and aid those targeted by the Holocaust. Reparations and remembrance. In the post-war era, Germany faced significant reparations and the burden of rebuilding a devastated nation. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment sharing your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notified of our upcoming videos. Join us next time for more captivating stories from history.